Coronavirus update. Italy's death toll spikes, asks 200 plunges and 2 Sydney schools hit by disease. Australia's state-by-state breakdown. Here are the numbers of cases that have been recorded in each state and territory. NSW, 46. Queensland, 15. Victoria, 15. South Australia, 7. Western Australia, 6. Tasmania, 2. Northern Territory, 1. Students at 2 Sydney high schools diagnosed with coronavirus. A boy and a girl in Year 10 at St Patrick's Marist College in Dundas, in Sydney's west, have been confirmed as having coronavirus. So too has a Year 7 student at Willoughby Girls' High School, in Sydney's North Shore. Classes at both schools have been cancelled today and parents have been asked to pick up their children. Both schools will also be closed tomorrow. The ABC understands up to 50 pupils may have had close contact with the 2 students who were infected at St Patrick's, and the relevant staff and students have been told to self-isolate. The students are among 6 new coronavirus infections that NSW health authorities have confirmed, bringing the state's total number of cases to 46. I have no doubt that as it progresses there will be more transmission within the community, NSW Health Minister Brad Hayes had said. 3 more cases confirmed in Victoria, 2 more in WA. Victorian Health Minister Jenny McAkos says 3 new cases of coronavirus have been confirmed in the state. One of them is a man in his 50s who was on the same flight from the US as Torak GP Chris Higgins, who was diagnosed with the virus on Friday. Ms. McAkos said it was not clear whether the man contracted the virus on the plane or afterwards. He developed mild symptoms the day after the flight landed on February the 29th, and is now recovering at home in self-isolation. Before his diagnosis, the man visited Wine by Sam in Seymour on March the 3rd, between 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. and a private film screening at Cinema Nova in Carlton on March the 5th, from 7:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The other 2 people diagnosed with coronavirus in Victoria were recently in the US and Iran respectively. The number of official COVID-19 cases in Victoria now stands at 15. Meanwhile, health authorities said a woman in her 60s in Western Australia had been diagnosed after seemingly contracting the virus from her husband, who returned recently from Iran. A man in his 40s is also in isolation in his home after testing positive, with Chief Health Officer Andy Robertson said, bringing the state's overall tally up to 6. The man is the son of a woman who recently travelled to Perth from Jakarta, and who is currently being treated for the virus in Victoria. 3rd ADF member tests positive for coronavirus. A 3rd member of the Australian Defence Force is in isolation after testing positive for coronavirus. Efforts are underway to trace the ADF member's contacts after the diagnosis this morning. The ADF member was stationed on a ship that was in port in Sydney, and was already being monitored after coming into contact with a civilian diagnosed with the coronavirus. 2 other ADF officers have already tested positive for COVID-19. Is 14 days too long to be isolated? Australia's Chief Medical Officer Brendan Murphy says researchers are working hard to reduce the length of the isolation period, which is currently 14 days. The COVID-19 test result won't tell you if you're incubating the virus, unfortunately, Dr. Murphy told ABC Melbourne. We are, and the whole world is looking at whether 14 days is too long a period. The virus incubation period is probably closer to a week rather than 14 days. The 14 days has margin for error in it. Most of the international community would like to see if we can safely reduce that period, because it is an awfully long time. Dr. Murphy also said there was no test to retrospectively tell someone if they had coronavirus, but that one may be ready soon. There are a number of labs who are developing these antibody tests that will be able to look for antibodies. Westmead and Sydney have got a prototype test. I think Doherty Institute in Melbourne have one too, he said. There's not one that has been validated and widely used. We will have a test that will be able to do antibody assessments fairly soon, and that will be very important to actually detect how many have had this virus and not known it. We do know that a lot of people have a very, very mild disease and may not even notice it. Italy overtakes South Korea as second worst hit country. The total known number of COVID-19 cases in Italy has crept past that of South Korea, making it the country with the second highest number of infections after China. Italian government authorities say the country now has 7,375 cases. That is 62 more than South Korea, but far short of the coronavirus epicenter China, which has more than 80,000 cases. The death toll from coronavirus in Italy's northern region of Lombardy, which has borne the brunt of the nationwide contagion, has risen past 250, while the national toll has risen past 360. The governor of Puglia, the heel of Italy's boat, made an impassioned plea for people in the north not to travel south. I speak to you as if you were my children, my brothers, my nephews and nieces. Stop and go back, Michele Emiliano said. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte has announced restrictions on the movements of the approximately 16 million people in Lombardy, which is centered on the financial capital Milan. Life for all Italians has been disrupted in some way, with schools shut, many church services banned, recreational activities cancelled and a number of the country's most famous tourist attractions closed or empty. France bans gatherings of more than 1,000 people. The French government has banned events of more than 1,000 people in a bid to limit the spread of coronavirus. Health authorities have reported 3 new deaths, taking the country's death toll from the outbreak to 19, while the total number of confirmed cases has risen to 1,126. The priority is to do all we can to slow the transmission of the virus, Health Minister Olivier Véran said. Protests, exams and public transport could be exempt from the ban on large gatherings,